who will be speaking on the homicides that occurred over the weekend. Once he's done speaking, he will field a few questions and answers. Chief Scott Thurmond.
Morning. First and foremost, I, like so many, am deeply saddened at the loss of 7 lives in our city over the Labor Day weekend. This is unacceptable, and we will never normalize even the loss of 1 life in our city. The Birmingham Police Department takes a proactive approach to combating violence within our city. On Wednesday, August 31st, we launched Operation Silent Night, with hopes of decreasing violence in our city. And the premise of that operation's title is to have silent nights in the city of Birmingham. The operation deployed additional resources to the streets of Birmingham and yielded numerous arrests, as well as firearms that were seized. However, as we have seen, violence spans beyond law enforcement scope. This is where the need for the community's help and a partnership with them is important as well. Our city is up against individuals who do not mind firing an alarming number of rounds at one another from powerful weapons, often placing innocent community members in harm's way. Whether it's a result of groups feuding or individuals involved in disagreement, violence has shown to be the #1 tool used to resolve issues in our communities. Everyone must play a part in changing this narrative. Often we are asked, what can the community do to play a part in this? One of the most important roles the community plays is stepping up to the plate and providing our officers with information that will bring those responsible into custody for these violent acts. At the beginning of the month, we were shown how vital this information can be. When Birmingham police officers were able to take a homicide suspect into custody quickly in the Gate City community because of community members providing our officers with information on the scene about the suspect's whereabouts. This individual is now in the Jefferson County Jail on a $1 million bond. Birmingham, the message needs to be delivered to everyone that if you inflict violence upon one another, our fellow community members, or anyone else in our city, we're going to do everything we can to bring you to justice.
Chief, the mayor mentioned this weekend called for a gang truce and named 5 gangs by name. Can you tell us a little bit about those gangs and what seems to be going on right now with gangs?
There are groups that are causing a lot of problems in our city right now. Those are the groups that we're looking into, also using our state, local, and federal partners to help us look into those groups and dismantle them, basically, is our goal there.
What is the issue with it? I mean, are they at war? What are
Don't
they
know.
at war over?
Don't know.
How do you know it's them?
Don't know. But we know that they are prevalent in our city, so we'll do whatever we can to dismantle them, to alleviate that from the community.
Chief, does the city of Birmingham have a gang task force currently? If not, when did it last utilize one, and if so, should it be brought back?
No, we do not, and I don't know when the last time we had one was.
Do you think that it's time perhaps to form a task force that actually focuses on, tackling the problems of gangs?
There's other ways to do that without forming another task force. We can form a task force for everything under the sun, and oftentimes those aren't productive. With the modern technology that we have working with our state, local, federal partners, there are many other ways to combat that without creating another task force and assigning officers to something like that.
I was just over at the county commission meeting, and they had a huge conversation about public safety over there, and one of the concerns that was brought up is the response time sometimes when people call 911 that they get from Birmingham police, and they talked about the staffing shortage. So what is the department and you specifically doing to address those concerns?
Officers, when the calls come in, officer dispatch to the calls, and so a lot of that depends on the priority level of the call. Will determine whether or not how quickly officers respond or how quickly it's dispatched, basically. From there, it's just a matter of how many officers we have working that day and how quickly they're able to get there.
Chief, I know that we don't want to talk about numbers, or at least the numbers that when you deal with homicide numbers, but we have in excess of 100 homicides. We won't get into the criminally negligent and all that, but 100. Any idea how many of those, percentage-wise, ballpark, are gang-related? Are we talking about 10%, 20% are gang-related? Any idea at all?
It'd be a small percentage. I don't have the exact numbers, but it'd be a small percentage.
Do you know which ones from since Friday were gang related?
No.
From Operation Silent Night, do we know how many arrests were made, how many firearms were seized? I know you said several, but can you elaborate?
No, we're still compiling this. So Operation Silent Night is not just a one-night thing. It's something that'll last for well into October. So that's something that we'll be compiling stats as we move forward through that operation.
Can you shed any more light about Operation Silent Night? Are you guys targeting resources in areas where you know
So what we do each day, we have what's called a ComStat. So each day we look at the crime that has occurred in the last 24 hours. We adjust our resources accordingly. So this will be an additional resource we can use in those areas. We'll break them up into different teams, put them into those areas where they're very problematic. For instance, Saturday night we put them in each precinct. Each precinct, as a result, was pretty quiet that night. We didn't have any more violence as a result after that. Unfortunately, then we had the homicide in Aylington Village after that. It's just hard to be everywhere all the time to prevent everything. And so that it's a shell game, if you will.
If you're saying a small percentage is gang related, what do you think the problem is, and what would be the solution to that?
To the gangs or to the fact that people do not use conflict resolution. That's the biggest problem we have. You look at a number of our homicides, the offenders and victims are known to one another. So it's not that you have just someone just killing someone just for the heck of it. You have people that are having some kind of altercation and have chosen to use firearms to resolve or solve their altercation. The problem with that is those are long-lasting effects that can never be reversed. Either someone is gravely injured or a life has been taken. And so then when the shooter gets arrested, they have to face the crime, the courts, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things I don't think people are really thinking about the total picture here, all the ramifications involved in using a firearm to resolve an issue.
Speaking on that, drive-bys were a theme of the weekend. Can you say a little bit about when you investigate those, what that means typically? Like you said, imagine that means they know where someone's at and it's a targeted thing, correct?
Exactly. You know, they're looking to see where people are, where they're hanging out, or where they may be, and they come by and shoot at them in hopes of either harming them or killing them. And so it's hard for us to combat those ahead of time because nobody's calling us and telling us, hey, there's a suspicious vehicle over here in this area. If that were to be the case, then officers could get there and possibly prevent the crime from taking place. But that's not happening either. That's what we're discussing earlier. Is the community has to be the eyes and ears of the police department. It's difficult to be everywhere all at the same time. And until the community takes a bigger stake in this, there's a lot of different things we can talk about. It's parenting. Where are your kids? What are they doing? Whether they're grown or they're not. How are they raised? Parenting is a full-time job. I don't know that people really realize that, but it is. It's a full-time job in addition to the paying full-time job you have. And it's a lot of work to be successful. Parenting is a tough job. And so I think people have to be more involved in that. Have to be more involved in their lives. What are they doing? To tell me that all these suspects and victims' families knew everything they were doing, and now they say they have no knowledge of the things they were involved in, is false. There's no way. Unless you just turn an absolute blind eye to it.
What role does retaliation play in the homicides we've seen this year?
I mean, it's been in some of them, but I don't know the exact numbers.
Typically, do you find it harder to get information from the families or in the area of a drive-by shooting just because if it's a targeted thing, there's a snitching concept? Is that something y'all struggle with on those shoot scenes?
Well, we've struggled with that for years and years in Birmingham as far as people giving us the information that would help solve these cases. And so, my entire career, that's been an issue here. And so, I don't know if that will ever change. I hope it will someday. But, the public knows, in a lot of our cases, we know who's responsible. We just don't have the information needed to go forward to the district attorney's office to seek a warrant.
Last few questions, anyone?
I think sometimes we see, I know there was the homicide arson suspects in Ensley, for example, that these people have a very heavy rap sheet and that they, are able to post bond and get out later that day. I know that has nothing to do with the police department, but what do you think needs to change at the state level to make your guys' job easier?
Well, the state did change the bond schedule not long ago, and that has helped. Just as the case that I mentioned earlier, that's $1 million bond on a murder case. So that is helpful. You have to look at some of the sentencing and things of that nature. There's a lot more programs and things that we have today that we didn't have years ago, which keeps a lot of people out of jail or limits their time in jail. And what we've seen across our nation is these people are out. Maybe they shouldn't be out, and they're continuing to reoffend. You look at the case in Memphis. Came out today that he just served 20 years in prison and was back. And is now charged with murder and kidnapping of the young lady up there. So that's just one of many examples.
Everyone, if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to reach out, Public Information Division. Thank y'all everyone for coming.
Thank you.